Okay, well, are we all set? All right. Well, good morning, Symmetry Nation. Glad to have you on the call. My name is Dave Lappin, and I am direct to the great John Ziller. I'm sure many of you know great John Ziller. And we are in, obviously, Marshall's organization with Carl and Ryan and Puckett and a whole bunch of great people, and just love it. I've been with Symmetry about 6 years now, and just think it's the best thing I've ever found. So feel very honored and take seriously being on a national call today, a national training call. And so I have with me, you can see they were there and now they're gone, Miss Paige Jensen. Paige has been doing unbelievable. She's an agency owner now and building her own big team. And a gentleman named Brandon Helming. Brandon has been with us for year and a half, year and 8 months, something like that, but he can tell you. He's really starting to figure this thing out and is producing well over 20 grand a month consistently. So let me tell you what I'd like to get done today. When we have a call, right, all the Symmetry calls, in my opinion, are very good. Some of them are inspirational, some of them are educational, some of them are motivational, right? There's a lot of topics, and we have so many good people and so many good calls, it's kind of hard to keep track of, right? Well, what I wanted to focus on today is something I think I can help add some value in, is just some sales training, okay? Down and dirty, this is what you say when people say this, all right? So that's kind of the road we're gonna go down. And why I start with that is I wanna have you guys think of something. I know I can't see all of you, but I can, I know everything is virtual. So, but I want you to really, give some thought as to what we're talking about. I can see there's quite a few people on here. Now I'm nervous, Paige. There's all these people on here. Just kidding. So when here's the concept I want you to think about. Before I came to Symmetry, I was this close to starting my own sales training business. Had a website, it was all janky, had some cards, but I was ready to go. That's what I'd done pretty much my whole adult life. And then old Ziller called me and everything changed, and I've never gone back to that world. But the concepts I was going to take into the market are what I want to talk to you about today, because they've made a difference for me, and I'd like to believe they've made a difference for our hierarchy. And the concept is, what would your business look like, okay, if you could just convert one more out of every 5 you're missing? So call it 1 out of 5, right? And the idea behind it is, we all know that in our business, what's so great about it is you don't really have to be that effective to make a living, right? Because of the nature of the business. That's why it's such a great opportunity. You can stumble and bumble to 2 or 3 out of 10, right? But what would your business look like if because you got better in your skills? What would your business look like if you got 1 more every week? 1 more, I want to think about it. 1 more, I want to talk to my financial advisor, that kind of stuff. And so we're going to talk about concepts and approaches and things to say when those things happen. Concrete things that will move the needle if you use them. So why I'm so excited about this is I have 2 people that are obviously, we're all using these tools and doing well. But there's people on this call doing much better than we are. So what I love about this is we all learn from each other. So my hope is, if you guys pick up a couple nuggets, then it was a successful investment of our time. And not to say these are the only answers by any means, but I think they're pretty solid. And so if you got 1 more out of 10, to wrap this subject up, if you got 1 more out of 10, let's say the average commission is $700 for easy math. We know it could be more, it could be less. But that's $700 a week. And that's what, $2,800 if my math is right? Let's call it 3 grand, extra 3 grand a week by just getting better at critical times. All right. So what would another 3 grand a week mean to your bottom line if you improved your skill set? The beautiful part is, I'm not talking about working any harder, which is you got to do. But as you get better, you actually don't have to work as hard. Because you're better. Okay, so that's a worthy goal in my mind. So we're going to talk about 1 out of 5. So that's how I'm going to refer to it, 1 out of 5. What we're going to talk about is we're going to do just a couple of ideas that we've always talked about within our hierarchy that I want to share with people that I think are helpful for our mindset. Right? We know our mindset's everything in this business. And what I'd encourage you to jot down is, you know, when we're on the or Zoom or on the phone or in person with people, we're really looking for the interested people, right? You guys have heard that phrase before. We're not trying to make people interested. We're looking for the interested people. Remember, we're not trying to make people interested. We're looking for the interested people. That's real important because when I was new, I kept thinking I had to gin up interest, and come to learn that's hard to do, number one. Number two, that's not our business because of the warm lead system, right? We're not sneaking up on people at a barbecue. These people want to hear from us. So having said that, I think when you get into your mindset of presenting to people, that's a good mindset, because I said 1 more out of 5, right? So there's some people that are not going to play ball. They, whatever, you know, say they can't afford it, blah, 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 whatever. They're just not going to play ball. But what I love about, you should be able to recognize that fairly early, and don't worry about it. You probably didn't miss that person. They were just part of the ratios. But what I'm talking about is some of these people, and I want you guys to answer this yourself and raise your hands virtually. How many of you last week sat with somebody and you thought they should have moved forward, but they did not? Okay. Hopefully we got lots of hands going up if we're honest with each other. And so again, I'm not talking about the difficult no-goes. I'm talking about the ones in the middle, the 1 out of 5. If we get a little better, can we convert that one? So I want you to remember that and think about that, because to me, that's exciting. Because if I can get better, and I know all of you are sitting there right now thinking, oh yeah, I had a guy who did this, and what should I have said to him? And I get it. That's how our brains work in this business. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to both Brandon and Paige, and you know, share some ideas that we've done. But more importantly, I've been in the business 6 years. These guys are less than 2 years, and they're just killing it. And all they're doing is what we're all doing. They're working the system. I don't mean that, but I do think there's little things that if you get better at along the way, you will get 1 more out of 5. You absolutely will get 1 more out of 5. So that's kind of the thing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, if you guys could turn your cameras on. Okay. There they are. Hello. And so, you know, a lot of you have, you know, heard of Miss Paige Jensen. She's agency owner in 14 months, something like that. Yep. And Brandon is working on, he's building an agency, but he's really starting to produce. So as is Paige, but you know, they're both really coming along. They just have a little different timing on their tracks. Okay, who cares, right? Today's a new day. That's the beauty of this business. And so they're doing well. Brandon has had 3 months in a row of like 22 to 25,000 a month. It's pretty good. About 85% APV. So the young man is making some money and really taking care of his family, and actually working less than he had to a year ago. Right, Brando? Fair statement? Okay. Right. So what we're going to do, guys, we are going to, with all that build up, that I think the build up's important, because if you don't buy into it, you're not going to do it. Right? But if you do it, you'll say, oh my God, this has been there the whole time. I was just approaching it the wrong way. I do that all the time. It's like, oh my God, I just learned something, and it's been there the whole time. It wasn't me. It was sitting right in front of me. I just wasn't doing the right thing with it. So we're going to talk about three things, guys, that I think are really important in the sales process. The first thing is our explanation of what mortgage protection is. Okay. And I know we have a script for it, and it's basically the script. There's just a couple things I want to add. Second thing is we're going to talk about the importance of getting commitments along the way. Okay, where do we get them and how do we get them? Right? Like my dad used to say, and I'm sure all of our dads used to say, look at Batman, right? It's not what we say, but how we say it. So in our business, I think it's both. It's what we say and how we say it. Because if we go to get a commitment that people are tracking along with us and it's too harsh, it's going to push them away because they feel they're being manipulated or sold, right? Like Brando and I were talking, the old, like an old slapstick, swarthy salesperson might be like, well, you want to protect your family, don't you? That kind of crap. That's never going to work with today's consumer. So we're going to talk about, when to get commitments and how to get them. Oh, and then the third thing is, I'm going to give you guys a formula that I've always used. There's many formulas, but I've always used this one about what to do when people say, I want to think about it. The dreaded, I want to think about it, right? Now, Brandon's going to go over, and I know Paige uses this, and I'm sure a lot of us use that preemptive script from Symmetry, right? But even when we do that, we still get a couple, I want to think about it. And I think if we, I just call it dancing the dance, right? If we dance that dance properly, we can convert a couple of those, okay? Here's what I want you to jot down. I've been, selling, I know I look like I'm 22, but I'm not, but I've been selling since with my dad in his clothing store at 15, not that I was really selling, but really since I was 20. Okay, so I've sat down with a few people in my day, and I've hopefully learned a couple things. Is some people, when you ask them to take action, right? It's kind of like, we've all heard this saying, right? Gretchen was saying it the other day. What do we all say when we walk into a retail store? And they say, can I help you? And we say, we're just looking, right? But we walked in the store, okay? So my point is, what I've learned is we all have knee-jerk reactions, okay? And I'm convinced that a lot of times when people say they want to think about it, that's just a knee-jerk reaction. They're programmed to always say that, because that's what they've said every time somebody asks them to take action in a quote-unquote sales situation. So if we don't handle that right, that knee-jerk reaction can turn into a problem. So that would be a definition of maybe one more we could have brought along with us if we handle it right. So, and sometimes it's an excuse and it's a nice way of saying no. Okay. When people say they can't afford it, that's a socially accepted way of saying no. No problem. Right? We're going to get no's. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, because knowing how to handle that when it pops up will absolutely get you 1 more out of 10. Okay, so having said that, what I want to do is everybody, most of us are on Zoom, some in person, but I'm sure everybody at the very beginning of their process, we'll call it a process, because when I think of a presentation, I think of a some big presentation. And what I love about our business, pretty mellow, isn't it? We're not selling, they already understand life insurance. When I first got here, an agent told me, because I didn't come from life insurance, he said, Dave, this is pretty simple. They pay, and excuse me, we pay, we die, they pay. So that's life insurance, right? We pay, we die, they pay. That's really, so it's an easy concept for people to understand. But we all know there's a little bit of confusion, right, around it. Is it PMI? Is it homeowners insurance? Whatever the case is. So, we want to talk about, and I'm going to turn this over to you, Brando, the importance of just nailing that right out of the get-go, and why we word it the way we word it, and why Symmetry has it in at that point is in the very beginning of the presentation. So what I want you to do, if you would, Brandon, is to take it from how you explain first of all, where you explain what mortgage protection is, okay, and kind of your version of it, and the little tie down afterwards.
Okay.
So
well, thank you, Dave.
I'm the client.
Okay, well, thanks, Dave. And first off, Brandon Helmink, I am direct to Bridget Felix in the Felix, Lappin, Ziller, Carl Miller, Ryan Miller, Puckett, Wayland hierarchy. And I'm very blessed to be so honored to be on this call and to be asked on this call from Dave. So now with the, I kind of, mortgage protection, that explanation is right off the bat for me. I build a little rapport when I begin, and then, kind of transition into, why we're here, right? And who I am, right? And so really, I just kind of explain first off that, that I'm going to create the same roadmap that I would as if, that they would if they had my background and experience. I kind of take myself out of it as the salesperson. I'm not the insurance company. I'm not here to sell them a policy. They can't buy insurance from me. I'm licensed by the state to send in that application. And then that's my first micro commitment, is I want them to make sure that kind of makes sense, right? And then I, transition into that explanation of mortgage protection. And I simply say, okay, Dave, real quick, let me just explain what mortgage protection is. You probably already know this, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So all this is, it's just a form of life insurance that a lot of people take out to pay off the mortgage when they pass away. Now, this is not the old kind of mortgage protection, meaning that your lender will not be your beneficiary. So who would be your beneficiary, Dave?
Probably Gretchen.
Okay, yeah. So Gretchen would receive that benefit, right?
Oh,
now,
okay.
One of the other major differences is this is not a decreasing term. In other words, if something happens to you tomorrow or 10 years from now, your death benefit will remain the same. This policy is also portable, so if you refinance or move, you can take this mortgage protection with you. Now, some people do a full payout if that's in the cards. Some do half, and a lot of people just do a little bit, just a little bit to help their family with the transition to the next step, okay? And it really depends on two things. First, it depends on budget. Everybody's got a budget, right?
Right.
And second, it depends on what you qualify for in terms of your age and health. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, it's important to know, most of the people that I deal with already have some life insurance in place. It's real common. Some have it through work, some have their own policy, some have 401k money. Maybe you got a rich uncle. I'm still waiting for mine.
Right.
Some have money in the bank. In other words, we all work to build up a nest egg, right? And that's why people get mortgage protection separately, is they don't want their family to have to use the nest egg money to pay for the mortgage. They want the nest egg to go to their family, and they want the insurance company to take care of that mortgage debt. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay, stop.
Yep.
Okay, my opinion, right? And I know Paige would sound just like him. So couple things, but it is right. When we talk to somebody, we should be conducting our conversations in a way that takes care of the objections that we know probably might be there, right? So the way you structure that, what objections were you trying to put to bed before they came up later?
Yeah, well, first off, really, the main one there is that most people that I deal with already have life insurance in place. It's real common. So they're thinking that, oh, I've got this policy in place. Well, that's what most people have. They get this separately just to take care of the mortgage. So we're kind of, trying to, without even addressing what they do have, put that in a bucket, right? That's for, they're in their mind putting that in the bucket of, that's to replace income or final expenses. This is to take care of the mortgage. So that's really the main thing there.
Yep. And so guys, again, this is more for the newer people. The reason, we start with that, right? You want to, establish that right away, because if you don't, it will come up later. It absolutely will come up later. And I think I've told you guys that story where I kind of where that dawned on me, I should say, is I was brand new, pulled up big house, big money, guy had buku bucks, and I talked to him. I said, hey man, hey, thanks for letting me come out. I was like second month in the business. And I said, I basically said, why am I here? You've done pretty well in life. And he said something that really changed my whole career. He said, Dave, I have done well. I don't need this money. I've got all kinds of money. I don't want my family to have to use my money to pay off the mortgage. So he dropped it right in my lap. And then I thought, wow, that is a great idea. Because up until then, I kept struggling with, I guess I don't need this. I've already got other insurance. So if you will do what Brandon did there, guys, and establish it and put it to bed real quick, you won't deal with a lot of, well, I guess I don't need this because I have blank. In other words, he just absorbs, it's fine. I don't care how big your nest egg is. It's always good to have more insurance. But I think, you got 3 little teeny commitments in there, right? So remember, guys, one of our subjects is the importance of getting commitments. So where did you get them? You got them on, well, obviously, does that make sense? Under putting in an app, didn't you?
So yeah, I explained that it depends on 2 things: their budget and in terms of their health and age, that they have to qualify for this, right? So that's the first commitment is, oh, I can't just buy this, right? I have to qualify for it. So that's kind of the first one there. And then when I explain that most people have life insurance, then in other words, we all work to build up a nest egg, right? And they understand that, right? They're tracking along with you. So they're thinking in terms of all that other stuff that they do have, whatever that is, that's their nest egg. This is separate. And then we just get that commitment at the end that makes sure that they do understand what we're talking about, and kind of wrap it up there.
Why that's so important, guys, and why so Brandon, we were talking this morning, and you, for a while, you were closing or helping 3 out of 10 families, right? Maybe 4 out of 10.
Yeah, 3, 4 out of 10 on a good week.
Right. And then what do you think made the change to where you are now? 6 or 7 out of 10.
It was simply simply sticking to a script. So I've been here long enough to remember the old days when we were meeting in the home, right? So I was, I had that memorized. I would go through it, but I would always, you might forget something here. You might forget to ask that question here. Well, I simply, once I simply said, hey, I'm on Zoom, I can have a script in front of me. I put it there, so I make sure I know, like, at this point, I ask this question, or, I say this. And so it just made sure that I was getting those micro commitments along the way, not only in this part, but, throughout the presentation. So.
Yep, good. So I hope everybody gets that, because again, but that's a skill level, right? Remember, at a conference we talked about, there's a formula: attitude, effort, skills. Attitude, effort, skills. Now, what we're talking about is skills now, not necessarily attitude and effort, because the effort came in on setting the appointments. So his life, his income, his attitude, everything about his Symmetry journey so far is infinitely better because he improved his skills. Now, for you new people, I want you to understand skills is number 3. It's not number 1. Okay. Attitude and effort, because once you have enough effort, then you can work on your skills, and your skills will get better. But what this webinar is about is hopefully giving you some shortcuts. So just to wrap this up, he got 3 little mini commitments along the way. Not huge, they didn't say, oh my God, I think I'll buy, but you're leading them down the path. And when you get those little commitments, you are guiding them very gently. They don't even know they're being guided, but they are, because old Zig Ziglar, I learned this years ago. It's called the yes, yes momentum. And when you keep getting little yeses along the way, it's a momentum. They're coming along with you. And the last thing I want to say, and then we're going to switch subjects, is, and I would really encourage you to jot this down, because I struggled with this for years when I was a young salesperson. Resist the temptation to just talk at people. okay, you've got to say what you're going to say and then check in to see if they agree on a lot of things. Not every single thing, right? But Brandon could have gone through that whole soliloquy and never asked one question to take their temperature. And if you do that, you're not guiding them. Who knows where their thinking is because you didn't check in with them. So remember, make sure that you make a statement, and then if it's in a spot that's important, say, hey, does that make sense? You know, would you kind of agree with that? And if they don't agree, you better deal with it right there. Because if they don't agree, you think they're going to move forward later? No, they're not. And so, you know, now that doesn't happen a lot, but if it does, okay, let's talk about that. What's on your mind? Remember, always ask, you know, what are your thoughts? What's on your mind? Don't tell them, well, this is up. Do you like to be told what to do? Nobody does. And so I just wanted to wrap up that one thing is make sure that you get comfortable with asking questions and not just making statements. Because when you make statements, there's no resistance, is there? Because, you know, you're not saying, hey, does that make sense? And you can listen to their tone. Yeah. Well, I would question that. So Paige, anything you want to add on that subject of mortgage protection explanation or anything we've talked about before we move on?
Really, you know, I say the exact same thing that Brandon says, and it's true. You know, those little micro commitments, you're making it a little bit more conversational instead of feeling like you're just on your soapbox giving them a speech. You're checking in with them, and it also helps me to build confidence because as they're saying yes and yes, that makes sense, absolutely. Then I'm starting to feel like, okay, all right, we're on the same page. We're kind of grooving here. And making sure I'm checking in with both people too. If one person's the one saying yes all the time, I'll check in with, you know, whoever the more quiet of the two is, you know, that also makes sense.
Let me stop you there. Little Miss Paige Jensen just dropped a massive nugget on you. I hope everybody gets that. Massive nugget. Okay. And what it was, so she knows what it was, always get answers from both people. Let me tell you something from dealing with people for years and years and years. If you don't pay attention to both people, there's always one quiet, a lot of times, right, and more boisterous. Guess what happens to the quiet one when it comes time to spend money? They're not quiet anymore. They become very vocal because we ignored them, right? So Paige, that is so huge, guys. You know, would you agree with that? And John goes, yeah. Okay, Mary, how about yourself? Do not just move on with the one, because there's always an alpha person, right? And that maybe it's the wife, maybe it's the husband, it could be vice versa. But when you get a check, you know, that's so critical. I would highlight that and put a gold star by it. That's how you get better, right? That's what I'm talking about. There's a whole bunch of little things that'll help you get better and get 1 more out of 10, maybe 2 more. Again, we're not talking about the no-goes because they're not going to play ball, right? Everything you ask them is a problem, right? So we're not talking about them. We're talking about the ones in the middle that said, darn it, I should have been able to convert that one. And I'm telling you, if you go through in your brain last week, I bet you there's well more than one. Okay, so that's what we're trying to help on. So thank you for that, Paige. Second thing we're going to do is this is on the kind of the same concept of getting commitments. But so when you break down our presentation, right, you got license, what mortgage protection is, you know, role and purpose. So talk a little, Brandon, about how you feel that, because again, guys, I look at everything as a step, and the better you are at nailing every step, the better your results are going to be. It's just that simple. So tell me what you think has helped you get better, get to 7 out of 10 when you're talking about your role and purpose. And when I think of role and purpose, I don't mean that's more what mortgage protection is. I think about, hey, all we can do today is blank. put an application in?
Yeah, so I think again, it was having the assumptive posture, first off, and then just keeping them in qualifying mode, right? So I'm assumptive, meaning again, you can't just buy insurance from me, right? We have to qualify for this, so we need to put in an application today to see if we can get this for you. And so, I go through, just in the role and purpose, what we're going to do today, verify health information. I tell them beforehand that, I'm a broker. I work with all the top rated companies. So I've already shopped around for them. So we're telling them that.
Stop.
Mhm.
Now, why do you think, guys, that's important? Okay, that's so good, Brandon, because, and I know that's in our script. I'm just making sure everybody's using it. So they don't say, well, I'm going to shop around. Remember, everything we say should be of a preemptive nature to put to bed things we know are commonly objections, which is, I want to shop around. I'm sorry, buddy, but again, to me, that's critical. And if you leave that out, you're leaving that door open for it to come back later.
Yeah, so that's how I start my role and purpose, really, is just that I work with all these top rated companies. My job is to get you the best coverage that you qualify for and at the best price. And then I explain what we're going to do, verify health, a few quick questions to understand how they're set up at home from a risk point of view. And then when we find the option that best suits their needs and their budget, and that I think they have the best chance of getting approved, I'll help you put in an application today. Now, keep in mind, applications need to be approved before you get the coverage, and I have zero control over that. And then once we've got an approval, if we need to make any changes, we can do that. But basically, I'm just telling them right now, all we're doing, and I'll even sometimes say, probably later on in the script, but your job is to find, what is absolutely comfortable in your budget. Just so we can see if we can get this for you. And then if you want to make changes, then you're in control. You can do that.
Right. That's excellent, guys. And again, a lot of this is right off of our Quality website and has been in our system for years. So we're not saying anything new. I'm just wanting new people to understand, and Brandon's a perfect example, and as is Paige, if you will study and become a student and use the tools, you'll get better. So yeah, we're gonna go over a couple little mindsets and little, kind of tricks I've learned over the years to move people off center, right? I view it as, we're here, there's a fence, and they're here. And a lot of times they get themselves stuck on the fence. One leg's on, one leg, and they're straddling the fence. And there are techniques to get them off the fence, and we're gonna talk about that at the end of the call. But that is good stuff, Brando, because the more succinct you are at communicating, you'll just get better numbers, just that simple. But if you noticed what he said about 2 or 3 times, it's not my decision, you have to qualify. It's like everybody wanted the kid that didn't want to be friends with you in high school, right? We all want what we can't have. And if you take it away from them and you really keep them at arm's length, they want it more. It's human nature. Like my mom used to say, I don't want to come to the damn party, I just want to be invited. And I always thought that was a great depiction of, I want you, but I don't need you. And that's the mindset. That's the beauty of that script. I mean, that is ingenious in my opinion, because if you don't keep them in a qualifying mode, it can start to feel like a sale. A sale of, hey, do you or don't you want to buy this product? Yes or no. That's a sale. This is part of a process. And I think that's great. And then one last thing, Paige, because you did it the other day, and I was so impressed with it. I'm going to start doing it. If you could go through, when you review the health questions, remember, you were super thorough, and I thought that was great. So what we're talking about, guys, is we're going to do this, we're going to put an application, blah, 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 all that stuff. But then, right, you need to go back and review what you learned on the phone, because all kinds of stuff can pop up. So if you could, Paige, take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've developed the mindset of, we go through the booking call, we get as much information as we can, but generally that's kind of, an initial step. I don't go too thorough in that because I know I'm going to see them on Zoom. So I pretty much plan to maybe pivot if I have to. I've got some set programs that I'm going to have ready when I go into the appointment, but I'm anticipating that I may have to pivot away from those. And so every single time, as far as we need to verify the medical side here. So real quick, what medications are you currently prescribed, if any, currently, or maybe something you used to take, but you don't take anymore? And I just list them all off, every single one. I make sure I have every single medication they could possibly think of. Then I ask, have you had any major surgeries in the last 10 years? Everything they could possibly think of. Are you currently, or have you ever been on any form of disability? And then, any history of high blood pressure, heart conditions, diabetes, cancer, asthma, arthritis, sleep apnea, any respiratory diseases. I realize we ask them that in the booking call, but it's amazing how many times people forget something like that. And when you open up history, you're not limited to, in the last 10 years, they'll say, well, yeah, I had cancer 15 years ago, and I would have never found that out otherwise had I not added that question in. And then I ask, okay, now the fun questions. Any felonies, DUIs, misdemeanors, probation, anything like that in the last 10 years? And then how's your driving record? More than 5 speeding tickets in the last 4 or 5 years? There's some carriers, that's a big knockout. And I learned the hard way. I didn't want to have all this stuff bounce back to me. So I wanted to just get it out of the way right from the beginning, get out in front of it.
God, that's good. That is so good, guys. I hope you're taking notes on that. I can't tell you, and I've written a couple pieces of business. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten screwed up on just a page. I forgot to ask about disability. I forgot to ask about DUI. And I had a guy the other day, nice guy, but he's a felony. He was so rough looking, I was afraid to ask him what it was for, and that was on Zoom. But so you can alleviate a lot of problems by doing it. That is so good. I'm going to start being that thorough, Paige, because I have not been that thorough. But doesn't it also confirm your posture as you're a field underwriter? I want you to catch that. That's really important in my view. That really, it lets them know we're not a salesperson, because because I've been doing it my whole life. What would a salesperson do if you threw them a curveball like that? And it wasn't like a that's okay, we'll take care of that. That's what I'd have done, because I'm thinking I can figure something out in the back of my head. I'll make this deal work. That's how salespeople think. Well, that's not how the insurance business works. So the fact that it's so dry and so literal, I love it, because it confirms our posture, which is the beauty of the system, because the system tells us to tell them, look, all we can do is see if you even qualify. And what I also think it does, and I'm sure you guys would agree, it lowers their temperature right away, because they're expecting what? To be sold something. And I love that, Brent. You can't buy any insurance from me. I'm just like, trust me, I don't think they're expecting that. They're expecting this. And you just seem to go, and before you know it, they're your best friend. There's a lot of people who are very difficult because they have their haunches up, they have their sales resistance up. You've got, right? You've all dealt with them. And if you're nice and courteous and friendly and professional, an hour later, they're telling you, Joe, oh, wait, you got to come over and have a beer, right? And so our system is just perfectly built for that. So that is just, I think, so good. Again, guys, these are all little things that will help your conversion ratio. It's not one big aha. It's getting better at a handful of little things. So thank you for that, Paige. All right, let's go to the next section. And I know he's on there. My man, Mr. John Ziller, is probably the best fact finder I've ever seen. Okay, and he's taught me, and I've taught you, and you've taught your agents. And fact finding, I think, is important. I know some people don't do it, right? I would recommend you do it. I think you're missing an opportunity. A lot of people are visual, or they've never thought about their budget before, right? They think they have, but they haven't. And John gets extremely detailed, and there's videos of him. And whether you want to get quite that detailed is up to you. But the basic framework of what he taught us all, I think, is phenomenal. And I used not to do it. And then when I started to do it, because I think, it kind of takes a while, the value of that to get them to go, is, and it really takes what, 2 minutes? So if you would, Brando, go through your fact finding process.
Yeah, so I really just kind of transition from the why. I kind of go over the why at that point, transition into fact finding, and I just say, we've got a few couple more quick questions here for you, and then, do you want me to go from like, your mortgage amount is 300,000? You want me to start there?
Yeah.
Okay. So Dave, your mortgage amount got about 300,000 now. I know we're not doing this or selling it tomorrow, but just for conversation's sake, how much do you think you would get out of it if you did have to put it on the market tomorrow?
Oh, probably 410.
Okay, excellent. So got about 110,000 in equity there. So that's great, right? Mm-hmm. And then now, how quickly do you think it would sell where you're at there?
Well, around here you put sign in the yard that sells, so probably three months.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot lately. So now your monthly payment looks like it's about 1,500. Is that correct?
Stop. Okay, I want you guys to understand what Brandon did there, just so everybody understands. What if he's got to go critical time with these people? Right? Well, he knows how much equity there is, but what was the real important question I think he asked? How quickly do you think the house could sell for? Because what if they're old and a year's worth of protection is $400? Okay. So if they're older, we could show them 3, 6, and 12. So 6 months would make perfect sense, wouldn't it? Because they just sold the house. They just told us their house would sell in what? 3 months. Mm-hmm. So you see how that little question, I think, is very important to setting the stage for what might come later. So that's all right. I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you say something that we know is important, because remember, guys, we're just asking questions. It's that old saying, right? You said this before. I learned it from a really impressive guy. Jot this one down. This might be a keeper. Good salespeople practice what they're going to say. Good salespeople practice what they're going to say. Great salespeople practice what they're going to ask. Right? The juice is in the questions, not the statements. And so, that was great, Brandon. That's all. I just want to make sure nobody, let that one go by them, because that's important to ask. I think a lot of people ask about the mortgage. They don't ask how quickly it would sell. Okay, so if you would pick it up from there.
Yeah, and then so just to I go over budget wise. I start with the monthly payments, and they I already know this typically. So your monthly payment's about 1,500. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Now, if you were to guys were to add up all your monthly bills, in terms of utilities, cable, insurance, cell phone, maybe car payments, maybe kids' activities, just kind of all of what groceries, what it kind of takes to run the house on a monthly basis, what would that be for you guys? Just what's your best guess?
Right. I'd say probably about 5,000.
Okay. And that pretty much covers everything that you could get by on with that?
Yeah, other than Amazon.
Okay, sure.
That's a variable I can't get my hands on.
Gotcha. And then Dave, if something, were to happen to you first, how much money stops coming in from your side of the fence, net money on a monthly basis?
Oh, I'm an engineer, so I make about 120 gross. So probably about 7,500 or 8,000.
Okay. Good. And then Gretchen, same question for you. What about you?
About 2,000.
Okay. Okay. So it looks like, together, guys, we've got about 5,000 going out, together about, 9,500, 10,000 coming in. So we're doing well with both incomes. Am I reading that right?
But yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. And then it looks like, if something were to happen to Gretchen first, Dave, I mean, you know, at least from a financial aspect, you'd be doing okay,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But Gretchen, it looks like if something were to happen to Dave first, you'd be in a real pickle. Am I kind of reading that correctly?
Yeah, yeah, I would. I would.
Okay.
Okay, let me
Um,
stop. But you see how he got a commitment? The difference is, remember I said there's a difference between making statements and asking questions? A lot of people would have just said, Gretchen, you look like you'd be in a pickle. That's a statement, isn't it? It's not a question. So all you got to do is say, am I reading that right? Or what are your thoughts on that? They're going to give you a buy-in. And if they're not bought in there, bless you, Paige, don't we need to deal with that there? Of course we do. So there again, really good, buddy. Just a little subtle, remember, statements don't move the needle. Statements with questions at the end of it is what can move the needle. So didn't want to let that pass. Then, so Gretchen says, yeah, I agree. So this is like the fourth or fifth little commitment along the way we've gotten. Then go ahead and wrap up for the next one. Why we set it up like that.
Yeah, so then after that, they agree she's going to be in a pickle. Then I simply ask again, I'm getting another commitment here. I say, the reason I ask these questions, guys, I just want to get a sense of if this is a necessity for you or if it's more of a luxury. And either way is okay. But, in this case, it certainly looks like, more of a necessity than a luxury. I mean, and what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it would be definitely a necessity.
Okay. Well, let's see what we can do to help you out then. And then I go into for me, I go into verifying the health information at that point. So
Okay. So there's so much good in their page. Well, we got 13 minutes if we're going to stick to an hour. But I mean, this to me, there's a lot of nuggets you guys are dropping here. Anything you want to add to that?
All I would say, again, I do the exact same thing Brandon does, so it's very duplicatable. And really, the biggest thing I can emphasize is not skipping a step. There are so many times where you've got it's just like one person's going to be more of the alpha than the other as far as answering. It's the same thing. One person's probably going to be a little bit more on the emotional side, and one person's going to be more numbers based. So you're hitting both sides, right? You're getting the why, you're tapping into that emotional side. But then going through the fact finding, you're hitting the numbers person. So you're really scooping up both ends.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's so true. And so, yeah, I'm sure you guys, well, I know you do. You both sound, very similar. And so we got that. And then we only really have enough time. I want to just cover two more subjects that I think are important. And I hope you guys are getting some nuggets here. But to me, this next subject is, I think, really important. And that is when you're ready to show the quotes, okay? When you're ready to show the quotes, right, we really should be, getting one last check-in to make sure they're on board, right? Because all these other ones were, they're important, but they're little mini commitments. To me, this is the big kahuna, right? This is the question that needs to be answered the right way, or it may get slippery on you. So, a couple things. If someone's been really good along the way, they're smiling, they're laughing, they're answering. I mean, they've been, they're tracking. Don't mistake, courtesy for consent, right? Don't mistake courtesy for consent. And sometimes people are just friendly and you think they're on board, but you're not sure. Okay. That can come up and bite you a lot. So the easy solution, just confirm they're on board before you show the money. And Brando, how do you do that? So in my mind, there's two ways. Let's take the first one where they're really good. They're on board. How do you just tie that down before you start talking money?
Yeah, so, well, first off, this is all from you, Dave. So everything I say is basically what I think you probably, sounds just like you. So, but even, that was the mistake I made a lot in the beginning was, especially when we're looking at the full payoff or more, partial payoff when, to me, it's like, well, it's simple. You guys are healthy. We can pay off this full mortgage. They're going to love this, right? And if they're tracking along with you, I would skip this step before I showed quotes. And so, I always, I get through the verification of the medical history and I kind of explain, the 4 things that can happen when we put in an application. And then I explain what we're going to be looking at. So if we're looking at the full and partial mortgage payoff, then, I'll explain that and what it's going to do for them. And then, kind of when I'm getting quotes ready and before I share my screen, I just kind of say, now, before I go over those guys, I think I know the answer to this, but out of respect for you, I just want to double check. Now, it sounds like if we can get something that fits in your budget and we can get you qualified for it, it sounds like you do like this idea and think it would be helpful and smart to get a policy in place. Am I reading you guys right?
Yes, you are.
And they almost always say yes, right? If they've been tracking along with you, they almost always say yes there. And if they don't, then I'm not going to show quotes, right? We need to circle back around. And then, that's kind of my quote unquote closing question, I suppose, is just right there. And then I go into quotes. So
Right. Perfect. So let me just add a couple things here. That is so good. And so here's what I want. Again, for you newer people, and for I think a lot of people, a dance can be created here. Let me explain what I mean. Brandon goes to check in with me, and I give him a yes, but with a qualifier. What's that sound like? Yeah, it just depends upon how much it is. Now that's not a good clean yes, is it? That's got a big old dragon anchor on it. It's a yes with a barnacle. It's not. I'm looking for a good clean yes. So what do you do there? Well, I think unfortunately a lot of us, because I've done it, they said, yeah, it just depends on the budget. Well, I've learned I don't want that attached to the yes. Now, if you go, oh, well, sure, hey, hold on, here, wait, and you just go right into the quotes thinking, oh, well, but they'll find something. You are almost begging for, well, okay, we need to think about it, and we need to go over our budget. Back up real quick. It's because they weren't buttoned up. Again, I'm talking about 1 more out of 5. Not talking about the easy ones. They're not buttoned up nice and snug. So the easy way to handle that is, let's say you give me that answer, Brandon. If I say, hey, Brandon, I think I know the answer, but out of courtesy, I just want to double check. It seems like if we can find something in budget and get you qualified, which there's no guarantee of, but let's assume we can, that you are, you do like this idea and you feel that would be important for the family to have something like this. Am I reading you right?
yeah, just kind of depends on the cost though.
Sure. Okay, no problem. I totally understand that. I guess what I was asking is that what I've learned over the years, and I've helped lots of families, is that if someone feels this is important, right, we'll always find a number. But guess what? If they don't feel it's important, it's always going to be too much money because they don't feel it's important. So I guess what I was asking is, if we could find something, do you feel this is important and it would be a benefit to your family? And so what'll happen there, guys, 8 out of 10 times, they will give you a better yes. Because you just laid it out there, right? Let me ask anybody on this call, who here spends money on something they're not sold on? Nobody. Okay, so none of us spend money unless we feel it's worth the money. We're getting better value back. So because that's a little dance that if handled incorrectly can send you down the wrong path. And a lot of times what it'll do is when you say, so guys, I guess what I was asking, do you feel this is important? and lay it out there because it is important. A lot of times you'll get what we used to call the look. So they'll be sitting there and they'll go, what do you think? And the look is important if you need it, because they need to double check with each other how it's going. That's if you have to go to that second level, but you really want to know how to have that because it's going to come up. And if you fumble the ball there on the front, on the 1 yard line, you won't get a lot of, you're not going to have a good 1 out of 5 ratio. And here's why this is so important is what I've learned, and I had mentors teach me this, and it turned out to be so true. There's a very emotionally powerful something going on in our minds when we outwardly hear ourselves say, yes, I want it. It may be implied, it may be hanging in the air, but if you actually say, yes, I want it, that has a big, big impact on somebody's psyche, and especially on their spouse's psyche. All right. So that to me was a nugget I got taught years ago, and hopefully, so practice that. Remember, you're looking for a good yes. If you don't get a good yes, you better know how to clean it up, or you're going to show quotes and you're going to get a whole bunch of, boy, Brandon, you have been so helpful in giving us so much to think about. And you're like, okay. The last thing, because we only have 3 minutes, but I absolutely want to get this in, is I know, Paige, you used a Symmetry. You go over before you're going to show money, you ask that question, but you also use the I want to think about it script, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you do that real quick for people?
Yeah. So I say, you guys, based off what you shared with me, let's look at some programs. I'm going to include at least one that's going to be more comprehensive, but I'm going to count on you to be honest with me about your budget. Sometimes homeowners will beat around the bush and they'll say things like, oh, I need to think about it or sleep on it. And really, you guys, I've been doing this long enough to know what that means. It means the price isn't right. So if what I'm showing you does not fit the budget, can I count on you to be honest with me about that?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. I figured as much. I'm not worried about you, but I always have to say that. These are just some of the programs. We'll definitely find something that fits in your budget as a good starting place. Okay.
Okay, so think about this, guys. That is so good. So, but see what I mean? We're just polishing up their yes along the way. But again, I'm not talking about the easy ones. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but this is how you improve your skills. And so there's one last thing is, let's say you're preemptive like Paige was. You go over the numbers and they still say, we're going to think about it. Okay, right? So I need to check, well, what are the common ridiculous things they say? I need to think about it. I need to check my budget. I want to talk to my financial advisor. Guy makes 70 grand a year and he's got a financial advisor, right? And so, but they say these silly things. So here's a little formula that I want to give in closing that I just love, and it will help you get, remember the guy with one leg on one side, one leg on the other? So remember, and I said, I think people say, I want to think about it out of a knee-jerk reaction, right? Those are the ones I think we can convert, but we don't know who they are. So let me give you a little formula, and I would encourage you to practice this. So Paige says, I go over it, and Paige says, I just really need to, let's do that, Paige. So of these 3 options, which one would you be the most comfortable applying for?
I need to think about this a little bit more. I'm not sure.
Okay, very good. Very good. I understand that. Paige, let me ask you a question, based on our conversation. It sounds like, you like this, you feel it's important, and, all those things we've been talking about. You're just not sure exactly which option to start with. Is that kind of where we are?
Yeah. I kind of want to think about which one makes more sense for the budget.
You bet. Well, if I could make a recommendation, as I've said, all we're doing is applying. You can always change the coverage. That's a piece of paper. What I would recommend, and I do this all the time, let's go ahead and, let's see if we can even get you approved. Put the most the most comfortable budget in there. That's, again, we can change that. But what I'm concerned with is I want to make sure we get you covered, and then we can change it later. So that's the path I would recommend. Are you good with that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so here's the formula, guys. Get the commitment first, then provide the solution. Remember, write that down. Commitment first, then provide the solution. Let me show you 2 things I wouldn't recommend you do. Okay. You're just asking yourself to get punched in the face. Paige says, I need to think about it. The worst thing you could do is ask them what they need to think about. Well, what is it that you need to think about, Paige? Just unplug your computer because you're done. You are done. Because what they're going to do now is give you 3 or 4 more problems, aren't they? Well, I need to do this and I need to do. So what was 1 problem is now 4 instantly by asking them the wrong question. Or they'll skip the confirmation on interest and they'll go right to the solution. Paige says she has to think about it. And I say, oh, I know, Paige, but all we're doing today is putting in an application and you can. So in other words, I'm almost using the same verbiage, but I skipped the commitment part. And I went right to the solution. And it'll work sometimes. It will, but you just got to kind of trust us. If you'll go back and nail down that they're interested, they're much more amenable to taking you up on your solution. Remember, people, when they hear themselves say, yeah, basically, what are they saying? I'm on board. Makes sense. Let's do it. So that's all you're doing, guys. And so just remember that as a final closing thought, but you can do this for anything. Commitment, solution, not solution only, or you will miss a whole bunch of people. And again, we're talking about what it does for them too. We've been kind of focusing on what it does for us, but we all know it's a double win. Don't they win a lot more? Let's say we make $1,000. Now, and we make back in money and all that stuff, but it's worth more than $1,000 to them, isn't it? So they're clearly the big winner. Yes, we get a little bit, but they get a lot. So when we have our mindset that we are, like I said this when I'm recruiting, Symmetry has created such a great culture. Oh, is it 30 minutes? Okay, well, we're a little bit over. We talk about protecting families. So 30 minutes. So we went a half an hour long. Guys, I hope this was very helpful because even if we went a half an hour long, you use one of these things and it can change your income big time. So thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Paige. I'm so proud of you two, the way they're coming along and growing, and they're leaders now. And so we hope that you guys picked up a couple of nuggets. And if we ever get a chance to hear about it, that's like kind of the big reward, right? Because we learned from people before us. So that's this business, is paying it forward, and then you'll teach your people and on and on. So with that, I better, unless they cut me off, I better get rid of the meeting, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for your attention. Bye, guys.